This evening we are lucky enough to have members of our high school robotics team with us. And if they would come up front, I'd like to introduce them. We have our two sophomores, Emma Kettle. And Emma is the safety captain of the robotics team. And next to her, we have 10th grader Andrew Caparucio. Did I do that right?
Yep.
Okay. And Andrew is the controls captain of the team. And then we have our two seniors, our two boys that those of us that were part of the board when they were freshmen remember them all bright-eyed and excited about robotics and all the neat things that they taught us as a board, and they've had such great success their 4 years. We have Brandon Potts. Brandon is the build captain of the team, and the business captain of the team is Jacob Mathis. So we welcome them and we thank them for coming here this evening. And at this time, they are going to lead us in the pledge. So if we could all please rise. Whenever you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, guys. And they wanted everyone to know that April 3rd and 4th, they will be at Troy, Athens for a competition. And then once they do well there, they say they are going on the following week to state competition. And then after they do well there, at the end of April, they will be competing in nationals. So they just wanted me to give a little shout out about that. And we're proud of them. And thank you, guys. States is at the Deltaplex in Grand Rapids.
And then Worlds is the Edward Jones Dome in St. Louis.
And so it's always in St. Louis?
Yeah,
Right,
the
because
past
isn't that
couple
where you
years,
went?
it's
Okay.
been-
And when they go to nationals, it'll be in St. Louis. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You bet. Good luck. Okay, next we have our mission statement. Bridget?
At Richmond Community Schools, we provide a quality education that empowers students to be successful in a global community. Andy?
Here.
Chris? Here. Jeff?
Here.
Tracy? Here. Dan?
Here.
Margaret?
Here.
And I am here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next is approval of our agenda. Are we doing a closed session?
Yes.
Okay. A motion would be in order to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, our True Blue Moment. This is where we highlight things that are happening in each one of our buildings. And we'll start this evening with Lee Elementary. Mrs. Dowker?
Good evening, everybody. So we had lots of cold days in February. We still had a lot of highlights at Lee. I'd like to start with February 17th with Miss Deanna on board. Her and I ran 2 assemblies. So my staff were trained in the CHAMPS philosophy in August, and we're trying to bring that up and actually make it building-wide. So we met with the kids and discussed some of the new procedures that they would see in the hallway. It's made a huge difference in our hallway. On the 27th, we had a wonderful talent show. I'm sure many of you were there. I believe about 250 tickets were sold. And from the videos that I saw of my staff, it's definitely something that I hope to be able to see next year. So it was an amazing night from what I hear. The kids were very talented and very enthusiastic about the show. Another highlight for my staff was just as recently as last Monday, March 3rd, we held a NWEA 101 PD for my staff. And though I thought it would raise some anxiety, it was actually a really great learning experience for them. Had a speaker come in and really dive into the data so that it was more clear for them and how to use it as we move into the spring. March 5th was an incredible event. Some of you were there. Was our Kinder Roundup. It began at 6:30. We fed 164 people, so 164 meals were prepared. And at the end of the night, we had 30 complete registrations. And since then, we've had many people stopping in and completing their registration. So it was a very, very nice event, very well attended. A lot of kudos to everybody that helped with that planning. We do have preschool registration this Thursday night at 6:30 as well. And then on March 6th, Friday, our Lego team was invited to attend this robotics field trip that took place. So we had 115 students, grade 1st through 4th, attend the robotics competition at Waterford Mott High School. They got an opportunity to see parts of the competition and were each given a robotics pen. They were also given some packet, and the older kids answered a lot of questions about the program, and they seemed to be very excited and looking forward to something to get involved in once they left Lee. Thank you.
Next, middle school, Mr. Bartels.
Good evening. The RMS happenings over the last month, we too have been extremely busy. This past Friday night, our 7th and 8th grade intermediate band performed at Port Huron for festival and earned a Division II rating. They performed better than they have all year, and it was an excellent performance. Choir, our 7 and 8 choir will be competing this Thursday at Stony Creek High School for their Solon festival. The National Junior Honor Society has been extremely busy the last 3-4 weeks. They hosted a sock hop, and many of our staff, a few of them are here tonight, were in full sock hop poodle skirts, and it was very nice activity, and it was a dance, and I know Mr. Hamlin did the dancing for the sock hop as one of his units, and they performed. And to get in, you could either pay the National Junior Honor Society $2 or donate a pair of socks. And the socks go to the needy through McCrest and for all the local churches and organizations that help the McCrest program. We had our last book fair. Our third and final book fair is behind us. Book fair is a great fundraiser for us and the PTA, mainly for the PTA, but the PTA turned a lot of the book fair proceeds into Scholastic dollars, so you get more than $1 for every dollar spent. And that helps us pay for our Reading Counts program, which is used 5/8. So the PTA every year pays that bill, and we appreciate it because it helps the entire school and program and our literacy program. Winterfest was unfortunately canceled, but understandably with the weather, we had some horrible weather a couple days and safety first, but we made it up, and there was a couple hundred kids running around the gymnasium with again the RMS PTA 6th annual with laser tag and inked non-permanent tattoos and a dance and karaoke and so on. Winterfest, it was another great event. I think the highlight of the last 4 weeks was, again, National Honor Society, Junior Honor Society. Through and with Make-A-Wish, students had to purchase a piece of duct tape. And that duct tape was, they called it Stick It to Cancer. And for everyone out there, Miss Borwick does not have cancer. And that was a rumor going around because her picture was on the flyers. Just to squash that rumor. And we made the announcement to the students because she was getting prayers and such. But our student body duct taped Miss Borwick to the wall, and then when we removed the chairs underneath her, she did stick to the wall. There are pictures on the website. Mr. Walmsley posted some on the website, and then they're on the middle school section too if you want to check out Miss Borwick stuck to the wall. On the 19th of March, we're doing a Super U Challenge. It's a character building assembly. It goes along with our Shine program. And we're going to do it 2 assemblies, a 5th, 6th grade assembly and a 7-8, because they're one's more upper L and one's more for upper middle school. And that's where it's a interactive assembly with the students about character and doing the right thing. Starbase for our fifth graders is underway. The program is approximately 40 hours, and our students get exposed to state-of-the-art technology and science through the Starbase Sulfridge Air National Guard. Readathon last Wednesday was fun in the sun. Miss Charlene Pleggins does an excellent job with our readathon. And lastly, last Tuesday, our staff PD, we did NWA data analysis. We went over the M-STEP process, crossing our I's and dotting our T's, and we worked on lesson planning for the 3-week window when the students will be testing, and the schedules will be crazy. So that's it.
I did see the picture. Fabulous. Just fabulous. And thank you for doing that, too. The high school, Mrs. Michon.
Good evening. The high school has been testing. All the students have finished taking the winter NWEA. Teachers have shared these results with the students, and all of our students have updated their goal sheets. We have also shared the growth goal and growth data with our teaching staff. The majority of our juniors have taken the ACT and Work Keys test. We had 5 students for various reasons who will have to do the retest date of March 18th, which is pretty good. 10 of our journalism students went to the Macomb Daily on March 17th to physically lay out the CTE page for the articles they wrote on Richmond vocational students. I went with them. It was a really, really neat experience. They actually physically did the whole layout by computer, actually right there at the Macomb Daily. So it was a very good experience. The staff, during our PLC last week, we did more technology training. We completed our school systems reviewed, which is required by the state for our school improvement. We also held departmental meetings where both the math and the English departments looked at the new SAT test and have made some recommendations as far as how we need to modify some of the things we are doing to better prepare our students for this test next spring. We also had 10 staff members go to our second training for PBIS. It looks like, what are we, code blue looks like going to be our high school symbol for it, but we're still working on that. I'm going to lead right into Mr. Benoit, if that's okay. He is right now working, we are hosting district basketball, so he is down there working. We have a lot in this section at the high school. The boys bowling team became state runners-up to Armada. We lost by only 36 pins. It's a great job for a young team. I want to congratulate Coach Essemacher, Scheuer, and the team on a great season. Our girls basketball finished their season Friday in district finals at Yale. The girls played a great game in the finals. Congratulations to Coach Shrout and the team on their season. Our cheer team were state runner-ups this weekend, just behind Notre Dame Prep. It was a very close competition. Congratulations to Coach Mathis and the team on a great season. Our wrestling state champion came in from behind effort to win or beat Dundee. A pin in the last match of the meet claimed the title. We'd also like to congratulate Devin Skatska. He's a 4-time state individual champion, the first ever for Macomb County. Congratulations to Coaches Day, Skatska, Trend, and Hamlin and their team on an outstanding season. We are currently hosting the boys basketball districts this week. There are 2 games tonight, 2 on Wednesday. We play on Wednesday at 7:30, and the final game is on Friday at 7. Spring sports start, even though there's snow on the ground. Baseball, track, softball, tennis, and girls soccer began their tryouts. Everyone is looking forward to the warm temperatures, melting snow, so we can go outside. As you heard, our robotics team, they placed 6th this weekend at Waterford, and I was going to let them know about the 100 elementary students that did attend. According to our students, it went really, really well. Our mock trial team placed 3rd in regional competition this weekend. They are in a wild card for possibly going to states. They take the top 2 teams between Oakland and Macomb counties. So we have a good chance because we were third. As long as 2 Oakland County schools don't score higher than us, we will be going to states for that. And this week, we also have our band participating in district-level competition at Anchor Bay on Thursday, and our choirs are competing tomorrow at Lake Orion. And that's it for the high school.
Okay, next is our items of interest from members of the board. March is reading month, so for the last few years, as a board, each one of us have brought with them a book we are reading right now, book we've recently read, to just kind of share that, yes, we read too. So, Tracy, you want to start?
Sure. Well, I have a chance to talk about some foundation stuff too.
Yes, you will. Yep.
On a different round, but
Yep.
I'll do my book first.
Do books first.
Some of you know, I don't know if all of you know or not, but I'm in the process, I've just started getting my master's degree in divinity. So I bring a textbook because that's what I'm spending my time in and doing, is reading. So the class that I'm taking right now is constructive theology, and this is one of 8 textbooks that I have for my class. So it's not very light reading. It's a lot of reading, but it's good stuff.
Very good, thanks. Jeff?
Well, I'm spending all my free time redoing a house, but every once in a while I grab a book that I've read a couple times. It's Life's Greatest Lessons. It's 20 Things I Want My Kids to Know. So one thing I want my kids to know is how not to marry a guy like me. So I'm trying to teach them.
Dan?
I've been spending the last few months reading contracts for negotiations at work, but I do find the time to read to my daughters, and a book that I read to my oldest daughter Ella, I'm now reading to my daughter Olivia, and it's Why a Daughter Needs a Dad. You know, it explains all the wonderful things that dads do. You know, as much as my wife would argue all this stuff in here, I do most of it. So that she enjoys me reading it to her every night when she is being tucked in and put to bed.
Very cool. Brian?
I'm actually starting a book called Behind the Counselor's Doors. This is a book that was written by a counselor from my previous district that actually got it published, and I got the opportunity to read his manuscript as it was going through the process. So I'm actually just starting this process to read and see what changes were made from the original manuscript to here. But it really gives an eye-opening view from a high school counselor's perspective of the challenges they face in supporting students in the school system with what they bring to the school and so forth. It was a great read on the manuscript. You know, I can't wait to read the finished product because it just came. So.
Very good. Well, those of you that have sat with me on the board know I constantly have a book to read. But right now, what I'm doing, we are planning our summer vacation. So I am reading, we're going to see the Tigers play Seattle. So I'm reading all about Seattle. We're going to go to Yellowstone. So I've been tracking our trip to Yellowstone because then we're going to drive to Denver for a baseball game. And Brian gave me a book, and I can't remember the name of it, and neither can he.
Fish philosophy.
Okay, and it's about the Pike's Place Market that is in Seattle, all about that. So the Teltos are going to be having a great summer, so that's what I've been doing.
Okay, I usually download all my books because I find it cheaper and I don't like books flying around my house too much. But right now I currently have downloaded, it's called Prayer Warrior Mom. And it's about just praying for your kids and just trying to be a better mom and using a lot of, scripture to kind of guide their lives. So it's a very good book. I recommend it.
I also download my books because I travel a lot for work, and I recently finished a book called The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom, and it's about a Dutch Christian woman that helped Jews during World War II. And The Hiding Place is in reference to not only this room that was between the wall, but also in reference to Psalm 119, 114, where it talks about the Lord being a hiding place and a shield and a hope, even in bad times.
All right, I'm going to be oddball and tell everyone I don't like to read. No. In my former career, all I did was read and do emails all day long. The last thing I wanted to do at home was to read. So, but I did a milestone. I read Killing Patton in the month of December, which I love the author, so everyone gives me those books. So I do read those books, but I really don't get a lot of stress relief from reading books. So I spend a lot of my time now reading at work, so I don't spend a lot of time outside reading. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anything else that board members would like to share? Tracy?
I just want to let everybody know about the Education Foundation, and we're planning a new event for us. Will be on April 17th. It is Richmond's version of Arts, Beats, and Eats. We're going to celebrate artistic happenings in our district, and it will be here at the high school that evening from 6 to 8. Lots of things will be happening. There's a magician coming. There are students who are going to perform. The students' artwork is going to be available for sale. We're going to have a silent auction for students. Students are donating their artwork to make that happen. We've contacted good work of the board of directors. They've contacted some local restaurants, and they will be available and have food here as well. And I think, Arts and Scraps is going to be here too, and so families and kids are going to be able to create things and take it home with them, and I think is going to be a really fun and great evening. So again, that's April 17th. It's a Friday from 6 to 8. And we currently are selling raffle tickets. If anybody wants to purchase some, I have some with me. They are $20 a piece, and the grand prize is $1,500. So it's a pretty good deal, and it's a great investment. And we will be drawing those prizes that evening at that Richmond event. So just wanted to let everybody know about that. Everybody an update.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, we will move on to the presentations portion of our agenda. And first up, we have Community Baptist Church.
Good evening, everyone. It was back in 2011 when I stood before this board, different members, some the same. And we, as a church, we were needing transportation to take our kids to summer camp, which is up by Traverse City. It's in Lake Ann. And so I came before the board. That was Richard Delors' recommendation. And I presented our situation, and then the board voted unanimously for these conditions, which I believe you have the letter. I'm not sure what happened to the original letter that was mailed, but you have a copy of the text that was on the letter sent to the superintendent. So the conditions that we did, or the terms, that we asked for, and has been over 2011, 12, 13, and 14 are basically the same here, that we would provide a driver at no charge. It's a Richmond driver. I drove the bus. The first year, we actually took the bus that is the handicap bus. We have a young man in our church who has cerebral palsy, and we thought that would be helpful, and it was, but then we grew in the number of students going, and he can make it up and down various steps. We just weren't sure. That was his first year going to camp, and we weren't sure how he was going to make it around the campus and how he would hold up. But he's done fine, and so we've taken another bus. I drove it the first 3 years. Last year, our youth pastor, who was also a driver for Richmond schools through Metz, Jamie Miller, he drove, and so that is what we have proposed again for this year. And the way we have done it the past 4 years, 2011, 12, 13, 14, is we take care of all of the fuel. So the bus leaves full, it comes back full. There's no charge to the school for that. Our church takes out a certificate of liability insurance so that our church insurance is covering the trip, so there's no liability to the school for that. And then in case of towing or repairs, or if there was something that happened, then our church would be responsible for that. And so that's never been a situation we've been. Fortunately, it's good road miles. I mean, I drive the bus every day, and the roads are falling apart right now. And so this is all on the highway, and it's good miles for the bus, not like what we experience on a daily basis. And then we return the bus in a clean condition. And then in exchange, what we've done each year for the past years is just we donate $500 to the school. And so that's what we have done. And I have on my iPad here in a file, I have the PDF of the approvals that came. I have 2013. This is what came from the superintendent, because that's what Richard Delore, he had me, that wasn't something that he approved. He sent it to, first of all, the Board of Education, and then after that precedent was set, then year by year we would send, about the same time each year, January, once we have the kids register for camp and they know, we kind of have an idea of how many kids are going to be going, what is our need, are we going to be past, our church van. And so this is a response, and I'm sure it's on file here somewhere with the school, but it's on the Richmond School's letterhead, and this is what Dr. Olson sent. She said, "Dear Pastor Wise, this is May 7th, 2013. I'm writing to let you know that I will allow you to use one school bus for the Community Baptist Church trip from Monday, June 24th until Saturday, June 29th, 2013, as requested in your letter dated May 6th, 2013. And that's from Dr. Linda Olson and copied to, at that time, Diana and Larry were the coordinators or supervisors there. And then the policy that she attached to the file that is from the school district, the policy is for its operations 8651, page 1 of 1, and where this came from that we were able to do this, non-routine use of school buses, and there's the policy given, and then it says in here, the cost of transportation shall be reimbursed to the board in accordance with a formula established in the district's administrative guidelines. And so that's from the policy. And each year, 2013, 2014, when the same letter came back, she attached that policy with the letter. So that's just kind of the history. And now I understand, and I think the reason why I'm here this year is because there has been a change in the for field trips and so forth. And so I'm back just here if there's questions or whatever you might have as you try to evaluate where you go in relating to churches in the community. And so that's what we're requesting. You have it before you for this year, the same thing as we've done the last 4 years. And that's it.
Before we get going, this is just purely for information purposes only, right? There's no
Correct.
motion or anything made
Yep,
tonight?
just conversation. What I want to say first is it's unfortunate that Dr. Olson told you that you could use the bus after 2011, because in 2011, when the board approved it, it was just for that one-time use. Okay? So, and you're coming before us this year because that's the procedure. That there's board policy that states when something can be used. So each time you would have requested or wanted to use the bus, you should have come before the Board of Education. Okay, I just want to make that clear, because in your letter, you're talking about a lease arrangement. You didn't have a lease arrangement with us. You had an arrangement to use the bus from June 20th to June 25th of 2011. Okay, just so that everyone, because I was on the board at the time, and Tracy, I believe you were too, just so that everyone's clear about that, that it has not been a continuous thing. So I apologize that that's what I have to say to you, but that's fact, okay?
Letter of request to the district and respond accordingly from our church with the district.
Quite possibly, but I mean, you came to the board the first time, so one would think that you would come to the board the second, third, and fourth time.
I would
I'm
think
just
that I
saying.
would follow the direction of the superintendent, and so I want you to know there's been nothing done from our perspective. We received
I'm not-
plenty of time in
Correct.
and received back the word, so we've just operated on that. And
Right.
if they would have said, if she would have said, yes, please come back before, I would have been here each year.
Oh, and I don't doubt that you would have. I absolutely don't doubt it. But just, you didn't have a lease arrangement with us. Okay, and that's what you're stating in your letter. So I just need to make that clear. And the reason that you are coming before us is because that's the proper way. And two, because you're requesting to use the bus like you did in 2011. And yes, things have changed considerably since then. And Brian, if you want to speak to that for the board, and hold on just in case, Pastor, in case someone has other questions for you.
When the request came, following the board approval that was made back in August, I don't remember what date, regarding change in the field trip policy, I had emailed, because I didn't know the history yet of what had happened, Pastor Wise, regarding two costs if we followed the board policy. And I think it's in your pack, just so you know what I communicated to them. And at that point forward, you could see that that's when the start of the clarification of this process had happened from 2011 up to the point. But the two costs that, using our current rate, made two assumptions. One is if we couldn't get an agreement with the union to have the driver stay up there for no charge for a salary, we'll be driving up there and driving back, and then going at the end of the week, driving up there and driving back. And then the second cost is if we can get those arrangements where it'll be no charge for the district for the driver, it'll be just the mileage cost of going up there and coming back. And there's a substantial difference between the two costs using our current board-approved rate. And that's where, when I provided that to Pastor Wise, that's when a lot of the clarification, well, we've done this in the past and so forth, and just looking into it. I do have that they have, I can confirm exactly what Pastor's saying, that they have paid the district a check based on the agreement that was made in 2011, each year since then. That has happened.
The church paid for the fuel.
It was just a check for the $500. I don't have any documentation that, so I'm assuming that saying the fuel came. I have no documentation that shows that we paid for the fuel, but so I'm making the assumption here that that agreement continued.
Every year.
Correct.
Clean. Yep.
How many students have you had in the past, and how many do you assume is going to go this year?
Each year, we have anywhere from 35 to 40. Plus the adults that go, the adults that go along, chaperones and so forth.
How many of those 35 to 40 are actual Richmond students?
It's hard to say. I mean, it changes each year. Kids bring friends and so forth, but probably 20, 25. We have people who come from surrounding communities. And I know as you look at the cost, I mean, I understand the changes or the need to make changes, and it's the Richmond bus. It's not our bus, so we're asking for permission, and what you do that's up to you. But if it is that cost, that's so substantial that eliminates that kind of a cost being put on our kids. They can't go to camp if that cost is broke down across the kids, and so we just have to look for other options. But it does give, even with the policy for field trips, even with the policy that comes, from the non-routine use of school buses, that does give the board the permission to, it says, the Board of Education will permit the school buses owned or leased by this district to be used for purposes other than regularly scheduled routes to and from school in accordance with law and rules of the state, provided such trips do not interfere with routine school transportation services. And it continues in, do you have that? Do you have that in your? Okay. Okay. All right. So I don't. But that gives, that's how we, I think, got here in the original, and that's what Richard directed me to you for. So.
Was Richard the transportation director then?
Yeah.
I thought he had already retired. I didn't remember that. That policy states that is something that we can do, absolutely. And going back to 4 years ago when it was brought to us, and Dr. Olson, thought it was a good gesture, a community gesture, and a one-time thing. And so who knows each year, had you come, what the feelings of the board would have been. But when we look at, in your letter you talk about that there isn't a cost to the district for the bus, but in reality it's 550 miles added to a bus, you know what I'm saying? And I think it's a lot to ask on a consistent every year basis. And yes, that the fees for it can be extensive, but we also have to be in the business too of making sure that we're covering ourselves too. I don't know what anyone else thinks. And Brian, what is your recommendation for us to listen? Go ahead, Dan.
We went through and changed all the facility usages and all that stuff and all this for a reason. And that's to cover our butts in case something happens. Just to constantly just be letting outside people use the school's buildings and buses and whatnot. Even if he was the only one that used it all summer long, it's gonna wear on the bus faster. The roads around here are terrible, so that's bad enough on the buses. We just passed a bond to purchase new buses, which was hard enough to do as it is. There's fees set in place, and I don't know that you can vary from those for different people.
What are these fees though without a driver?
The fee, the $4.05 rate, I don't think, Christine, you weren't on the board yet, but for the rest, we take our transportation report that we submit to the state every year. We take the total cost of transportation, which includes payroll, fuel, service, anything charged towards transportation, and we divide it by the total number of mileage that our buses run each year. And so that's how we came out to be that 405. So that 405 total is encompassing of all costs associated with that bus for each mile it drives. So this June, when we submit that report, I would be coming back to you in August and say, okay, based on our transportation costs this year, the number of miles our bus ran this year, we would establish what that per mile charge would be.
So if they're willing to have their own driver and cover their own insurance, what is the cost per mile? How does that break down?
I would have to bring that to you. I could get it for the next meeting, because I know when we calculated these two rates, when we calculated the rate that was recommended to the board back in August, we had two options. One was a strict cost, one was a strict cost with payroll and everything included. And I don't have that in front of me. What I did on this one, in the packet that you have, just to give you, was I just strictly did the cost per miles, because if on the first scenario the driver has to drive up there, drive back, and then come back and pick them up, the second scenario is driving up there, assuming there's no payroll cost that I would incur for the driver while that person's up there, and then just driving back. That was the second cost. But that 405 cost does include payroll costs for the district. It's what our transportation costs.
That's probably a large amount of that $4 and change.
Yeah, I would think that would be high.
So,
Right, but they're
Seems to me
paying
that
for
there
the
would be a
fuel.
grievance issue too with the bus drivers. I mean, aren't there overtime granted on a seniority basis? And this is considered.
This isn't during the school.
But this isn't during the school year, this is an actual field trip. This is
But
just-
it's one of our buses being driven. That's what those people are paid. It shouldn't matter.
But our policy says for field, isn't it, for in school session, in the school year, and the field trip,
Oh.
it's not.
So unless I'm,
School buses for athletic teams to go away to camp.
In the summer?
I know if I was a bus driver here, I would have an issue with, if I was top
Yeah,
seniority,
because-
not being asked to drive the bus.
so with the way I'm reading this is that if Brian, you get resolved that there was no charge for the bus driver and no charge for the fuel, I think it would, at least I would entertain that it would meet the intent of the board if that whoever borrowed the bus paid those costs. So they would still pay for the wear and tear, whatever that calculation is, or whatever cost they're not already paying. Because right now, the dollar figure you got there includes the bus driver and the fuel.
Our cost to drive a bus in this district is $4.05 for every mile they drive. But if you're requesting, I could work with our, Vicki and our business, we could back those costs out and give you what the strict cost, I guess, for the mileage would be.
Yeah, I mean, if you figure out that buses get 5 to 7 miles to the gallon.
That's what I put in one of the, going back and forth through email. By the time you factor in, we've paid for the insurance, we paid for the fuel, which last summer, if I remember right, was a little better on the fuel cost. But, so by the time it's all said and done, I mean, the church is probably paying somewhere around $1,500 for bus usage, with the fuel. And we take a van, and we take a trailer for luggage, so there, I mean, it's an undertaking. But it's worth.
But those are costs you would have with any
Right.
other transportation company that you would
Depending
work
on.
with, depending on the transportation
Yep.
company.
And that's one of the things I was asking is, okay, so if it's $4.05 a mile, then what, does that mean that we still pay for the fuel? Does that mean that we still, and if we're not, that's kind of the question that you were asking, Dan.
I would assume the two biggest cost drivers are the cost of bus driver and fuel. If they're gonna pick those up, then I'd like to see what the difference, what's the delta that's left over for the fair wear and tear of the bus? I think there's some middle ground there if the board would entertain the exception to policy.
Can we talk about liability for that? No, I mean, I know that, there's liability insurance that the church has done in the past. What does our insurance company say about that and that situation? Does that, how do we?
I will confirm this, but if it's our driver, our employee driving the bus, and if our buses get into an accident, our insurance is covering whether they've got another policy, and we're still covered under our insurance. But I can confirm all that.
I would say insurance companies are pretty adept at finding out if there's someone else in front of them to pay, which would be the point of our insurance being there. They seem to work hard at finding out if somebody else can foot the bill for things.
I just want to make sure that there aren't things that are null and void or those kinds of situations that happen with that. I mean, if there's a rider by somebody else to do that, I mean, sometimes that happens.
I would have to follow up on that
so.
to confirm that, but
Does anybody else have any other questions or comments? Okay, Brian, then we've got some questions from the board, so we will just move this to, our next meeting is in 2 weeks.
All right,
and
and
that's when
do you want me to
we-
come back? Well, 2 weeks. I leave for Zambia on the 31st.
the 23rd.
23rd? Okay. I will not be out of the country yet.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next. our bond update.
Chip, you wanna? He's borrowing the green?
Borrow this, because you have to read it off his phone.
There's a couple things that Hendrik is going to go over with you. You should have received an update on the budget for the bond. I think there was a handout that was given to you. Vicki brought that tonight. I know that was one of the questions that, I can't remember if it was at the board meeting or from the last board, but it was a question that was brought up about where are we at in terms of the bond. At the next board meeting, Convergence Technology and our curriculum director, Anthony Berkmeyer, will be here to talk about our technology aspects, as well as the one-to-one technology, where we're at and the timeline for that. So this doesn't include anything with that angle, because that didn't fall under the scope of work for Hendrik. And then, go from there.
Just wanted you to know that normally I do not give board reports. It's usually our on-site superintendent that does so. I used to in the good old days. 20 years ago, I always gave board reports. We didn't work with that many school districts at that time, and it was just by chance that those board meetings weren't on the same night. So I typically went to all the board meetings and gave the reports, but even when I did that then, I would get the report from the on-site superintendent, because what we do is operate in our business. We don't have things flowing back and forth to our office in Saginaw. We try to operate, we do operate, and place the office right at the district where we're working. At the last meeting, at your last board meeting that I was at, I felt when I left that it was in question whether we were doing our job, and even furthermore, whether we even cared. So I'm going to backpedal a little bit and go through a little bit of history with the supervision that we had on this project. We did start with Bill Pearson from day one on this project. Bill's a very qualified superintendent. He's worked for us for 16, 17 years. And maybe a testament to him is we're going to be starting soon, and he was intending on working for us on this project. That was a 2-year project, Chesaning Union Schools. It was a $25 million bond project. They told us, without competing for that job, because their relationship they had with Bill Pearson, that as long as they had Bill Pearson, Hendrik had the job. So you had a good superintendent on site. A couple months ago, though, I had some pretty harsh words with Bill. There were some things that were going on that I wasn't satisfied with, actually very disappointed in. I feel I have mixed emotion for having that kind of a conversation with what Bill's going through now, but I didn't know it at the time, but I can understand a lot of what happened in the past from what I know now. Shortly after that, I still did not know about Bill's disease, but I took steps to ask our top superintendent if he would come down and just take a look at the work that was yet to be finished. This work was delayed because of bad weather, and that was the completion of the new science wing. I asked the superintendent, Brian Leuenberger, to come down here and to work with Bill Pearson to develop a schedule for the balance of that work. He did so. He did so quickly. He followed up with a lot of that work. He wasn't here full-time, but he was doing a lot of phone calling behind the scenes to make sure that things, and he reported to me also that things were moving along per the schedule that he came up with. It was then very shortly after that then that Bill revealed to me that he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and I knew that from the condition that he was in when he talked with me that we needed to replace him immediately, and we did so. It's not easy just to pull somebody from another job, so what we did is we actually had Brian Leuenberger, who did the schedule. He came down for a while. I intended, because we had a different superintendent that was just wrapping up a job, Rob Groton, and Brian's met both of them. We had the job manned with supervision at all times, and there were also times that both of them were here, because we did not want to, at a critical time, to try to finish up. We didn't want to let things slip at all. The next thing that happened is we had a new hire, Michael Hinojosa. Michael was the facilities director from Croswell Lexington Schools. We hired him, we trained him quickly, and we brought him down here. He had experience working with, I know that some of the problems we were having with Dickerson, he worked with them when he was at Croswell Lexington Schools. And I knew he would be a good fit and able to do this. So I didn't just take a new hire and bring him here and say, okay, do a good job, see you later, call me if you have any problems. Rob Groton and Brian Leuenberger both were down here at times to assist him. and help kind of plan and guide him along. But again, we had full-time representation. The main thing, the reason that we had multiple superintendents during that time is the main thing that we wanted Michael to do is to take the punch list that was done and to go through it at each building, you know, everything inside and out, and do a complete review of that so that we knew, because we just, I'm sorry, but we couldn't trust that, you know, where things were because of the condition that Bill was in at that time. So we took the punch list. He did, again, a complete review, and I'll give a report, you know, punch list where we're at. But that's what he did. You know, what was done, what wasn't done, know who, with what wasn't done, who had to do it, and then make sure, you know, it got done as timely as possible. I talked with Michael daily, and I know that, I don't know if it's, I can't say for fact if it's daily, but I know he communicates with Brian, if not daily, often. One of the things also that we did is when there was some action that was going to be taken, I got a call from Brian. He was trying to organize a group. He actually called and asked if it was okay to bring another group in from the outside to do at the unit vents that are at grade, to be able to try to insulate those. And I knew he was working on that. But I also, though, got word close to 4 o'clock that day, and I believe this was on a Friday, that I wasn't sure if he was going to get somebody. It wasn't known at that time. So we got on the phone. You know, our guys, most of them were done for the day, but we got on the phone and organized a group. We had five Hendrick employees plus Michael Hinojosa that came down to assist, and Brian was successful and got 2 or 3 guys from a company that he was trying to contact. There were a couple people, 1 or 2 from Efficient Design and 1 or 2 from Booms that were down here. So that group, again, our organization didn't start till 4 o'clock. Phone calls were being made. They probably didn't leave till 4:30. Michael Hinojosa made sure they had the material they needed when they got here, and this collective group got the work done to insulate all of those units from the outside, and they were on their way back to Saginaw by about 9:15. Then to go back a little bit further, when the first coil or coils ruptured and there was a lot of water damage that was happening, I learned about that on a Saturday. I was on the phone with Dickerson Mechanical. I was on the phone with Michael Hinojosa, with both of them multiple times. What I was told on that day was that the report to me is that really nothing could through any investigation, nothing was going to be discovered as to the problem to know if further ones might break. And what they had to do first was they had to get the replacement coil installed in the tuning unit first. That would then allow them to do investigation to try to find out what happened in that. Now, whether that's right and turned out to be wrong, it's just what was reported to me at my home in Saginaw on that Saturday. I was right in the middle of water line in my own home in the attic space that broke on Saturday, or excuse me, that broke on Friday. If that would not have happened, I can tell you, it's easy for me to say, but I would have been here on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock to meet the board president and vice president to take a look at the damage, but I was in the middle of that. I was at, just coincidence, I had a visit, or I had to go to Caseville on a problem that they're having, a warranty problem with their new gym floor. They also took me into their media center where they had a pipe that froze exactly the same reason it froze as that you have here. And with that, I'll go through the board report. Yep.
What's that supposed to mean, that another school had the exact problem as us? Where does that?
I'm not saying that it means anything. I'm just giving a report.
Oh, okay, but I'm just saying, I don't know what that has to do with us.
It's referencing the unusual. The reason for saying is these things are not just happening just here. That part of the problem, I think, is because of the unusual cold weather that we've had. A record February is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to go through the punch list. I think this will, and majority of the items are going to be regarding the unit vents. But, okay, at the high school, the unit vents, damper openings were made smaller need to be made smaller with masonry units. That's going to be done by Efficient Design. We were told originally that work had to happen from the inside, could not happen from the outside, but when we came down and did this other work, it was then they said, yes, we can do it. They can do it from the outside. So that work's going to be done March 9th, 10th, and it's supposed to be completed on the 11th.
So how was that initially corrected that it could have been done.
That it could have been done earlier?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just trying to understand if a subcontractor told you, hey, that can't be done from the outside, and someone accepted that, and then we found out later that that wasn't the case, so.
I don't want to say anything this evening that's incorrect, so I'd like to get back. I need to talk to a couple people, and I'll get an answer through Brian on that. You know, if I answered that, it's not going to be, may not be factual. I'd have to ask people. Well, and yes, and you know, I'm going to be honest and forthright with you with everything I say tonight. This is something that I just learned today. Okay?
What was the date on that repair?
March 9th, 10th, and 11th.
Something happened today.
That would be today.
Yes.
Just to be clear, on the 24th, when the high school unit burst, I don't know if that's the right word, but.
That's the right word.
That night, as Chip said, we went around every high school. I shouldn't say we, because I was not part of that. I mean, I got it started and I left, so, but they insulated all the high school and all the elementary univents from the outside. At that time is when they were pulling off the univents, because the mason, and forgive me, I'm drawing a blank on the company's name.
Efficient Design.
Efficient Design was here. At that point, they said, based on what they could now see, that they could do it from the outside. That's what I've been told as of today, when we had the joint meeting of really everybody involved in this. But prior to that, it was never communicated that way.
Well, I guess the root of the problem is, I'm not sure why it wasn't done correctly in the first place. And that's the answer that we really need to find out.
That really is the answer. We need.
Okay, reattach all exterior louvers that were removed for the damper work. Dickerson Mechanical will take care of that on April 6th. Patch, paint the exterior gypsum deck outside each vestibule in the Science Edition. Seven Brothers Painting will do that on March 11th. Grade the exterior of the new Science Edition. Ward is the contractor for that, and they'll do that, scheduled to do that on April 6th. Seating the exterior of the new Science Edition. Again, Ward on the same day, April 6th. The last coat and striping of the track, which will be done by Star Track, is scheduled the spring, summer. It's when we have 50-degree ambient temperature, and they need the track per the change order that was written for 8.5 days. We have been in contact with them to start, conversation as the weather changes, but it's not likely because of what the average temperature, traditional average temperature is. It's not likely that could possibly happen at least until April. The new auditorium lights by Shoreview, those are going to happen. That's going to happen on April 6th. The exterior auditorium soffit lights, also by Shoreview, we don't yet know when those are going to be delivered. The rear asphalt parking lot will be sealed by Aztec during spring break. We can make all univents accessible through the end panel at the high school. Metro will do that, and that's going to happen on April 6th. At the middle school, the second coat of white paint to all drinking fountains. At the elementary, Seven Brothers will do that on March 4th. That happened on March 4th. Univents, the louver openings made smaller with masonry units, Efficient Design, the same dates, March 9th, 10th, and 11th.
Excuse me, what
yes.
happened on March 4th?
It says second coat of white paint to all drinking fountains at the elementary, and I don't know what that particular one is.
I know at the elementary level there were, we did match some of the cream. I don't know if it's the second coat is at the high school and middle school yet, or at least the middle school. I know the elementary, some of that was fixed. It's a cream color wall that you match.
And Margaret, on that one, I'll get back with Brian also, because I have pretty strong feeling that date of March 4th might mean it's supposed to be April 4th, because that would if it was March 4th, it wouldn't even be on this list if it were done.
That would mean it's already been done.
That's correct. So I'll let Brian know on that particular one tomorrow morning. Attaching the exterior louvers by Dickerson on April 6th. caulking of all exterior columns. DC Byers is the contractor. They're going to do that on March 9th and 10th. At the elementary school, the univent louver openings were made smaller with masonry units. Efficient Design will do that on March 9th. Attach all exterior louvers by Dickerson on April 6th. And then I'm going to give just some general notes, and Brian, when I'm done, if you wanted to add to that, because you were at that entire meeting, it was about 2.5 hours, it happened today. At the meeting today, it was strictly about the mechanical issues. There was represented was Dickerson, Hendrick, Metro Controls, STA Emergency, which is Dickerson's insurance investigator. That individual is a mechanical engineer. French Associates, Thermaletics, Brian Walmsley, S&Z Sheet Metals, Aerodynamics, the test and balancer, and SES, French's mechanical engineer, were all present for the meeting. And that happened today. It began at, it was 1 or 1:30 today. Unanimously, the unanimous cause or thought by all for the coils freezing on 220, the middle school mini gym, 220, the middle school room 202, on February 23rd, the middle school room 301. There was one reason. It was the low temperatures. Only 30% of the valves opened. Dampers were not closing completely. Weight gravity backdraft damper was not being installed by S&Z Sheet Metal.
What was the last one?
The weight gravity back damper was not being installed by S&Z Sheet Metal.
So something wasn't installed at all on
That's
any
what
of
it says.
On any of the units?
If the unit was designed, I'd be referencing these louvers not closing. There is a gravity weight air damper that is supposed to sit on top, and it's, if you will, a safety measure to close. And if air gets in there, then the other unit louvers close. That damper was not installed on 23 of the rooftop units in the middle school.
So who signed off the quality control on the job? I guess it's not now, but that's the question someone needs to ask. I mean, somebody signed off on that it was done.
So, and I'd have to look at, I gotta go back. I mean,
Yeah, I'm not
we had the
looking for
meeting
answers now,
from,
but
I think we ended around 4 o'clock today. It was about about 3 hours of meeting. The low temperatures is the constant factor, but because certain things weren't in place, that escalated that low temperature in the cause. And as Chip mentioned, that damper not being installed, that control valve in the unoccupied mode was at 30%, and it wasn't enough flow, which would allow, and then the outside dampers, which is really the secondary dampers, if you will, weren't closing completely, and they were leaving about a 3/8 of an inch, I think was the number they used at the meeting today. They have gone around and checked the dampers. Right now, in unoccupied mode, they are still at 100%. They have not figured out what that number needs to be at this point.
How many do we have come apart at 100%? Wasn't there at least 2?
Let's see, the first two on the 20th, the mini gym,
We're at the 30%.
and we're at the 30% because we were at the district-wide, had no school, so the district was at unoccupied mode. On the 23rd, which is room 300, we were in unoccupied mode, 30%. On the 24th, which would have been the high school univent, we would have been in occupied mode. And that, when in occupied mode, would fluctuate based on the needs of the situation. At that point, on the 23rd board meeting, they put us all at 100% for unoccupied mode and just kept it there till they could figure out. But during the occupied mode, that valve fluctuated. When that one went on the 24th at the high school, unoccupied and occupied mode, the valve was put to be 100%. The last univent, which would have been last Thursday, which would have been room 103 at the middle school. It was in occupied mode, but they had adjusted it back to the previous conditions to let the valve run, because they thought with the secrecy they had figured it out. At that point, we did not know that the gravity-weighted air damper was not installed. But on that particular unit is an anomaly because the sensor was, and I actually have the sensor because they gave it to me today, this little piece came loose off the unit and wedged in those louvers in the back. But it's not a sensor that our system uses. It's an air intake sensor. And I'm trying to remember the correct terminology, so forgive me, I'm not. Our air temperature that we use for the outside is located on the north side of the middle school, on the north side of the high school. There's one at each building that references for all. That particular one comes with the unit from the factory, but we don't have that, it's not designed to be tied into our system to measure what that particular air is coming in at the piece. And I just want to Skip, I don't know why I keep calling you Skip. Another person that was at the meeting today was our SETSEG representative sent an engineer to represent the district, and Jerry from Nudbro, I think it's what it's called. So he was another person. We had three, and those three engineers pretty much really had a lot of the conversation today in terms of what the tolerance was and what we should be looking at. The dampers are scheduled to be installed beginning this Friday, I think Thursday, but I know for certain they said Friday. We're trying to get out here Thursday for the gravity-weighted dampers on the units at the middle school. So with that being put on it, and then adjusting the control valve, S&E is doing some testing on the what that valve should be at. So that's what I know as of today from that meeting.
These weight gravity back dampers, I mean, we know for sure that those were not present on the units that have burst.
All of those are on the rooftop units, so they wouldn't have been present on the 4 from the middle school. That's not needed for the high school because that's a floor-mounted unit. So for the 4 at the middle school,
the high school was thought to be the masonry issue.
The high school, I don't know if we have a definitive answer, but I know the mason is an issue because that hole in the high school is larger than what the specs call for it. Today, they were out working at the elementary school from the outside, pulling the louvers off, cementing the brick, and then they're supposed to head to the high school when the elementary school's done.
So I guess the natural question for me is, so where were these gravity-weighted thingamabobs? I would assume that there's a bomb or something that ordered all this material. The district was paying for it, it should have came here. So where were they? In a box somewhere they got sent back? Or where are they coming from now? Are they at someone's warehouse, or are they still in a crate somewhere here? Because that would kind of lead you to why it wasn't installed.
What I can say that I know to date is that at the last board meeting, the days afterwards, they went through and inspected all the units, both Dickerson, Thermonetics, and so forth. If at that time they realized it was missing and ordered it, I just found out about it today at the meeting, that piece was not there. And I don't know if Michael from Hendricks knew about that during the process. So I don't know when they inspected it back in February the 23rd, that next day, if they realized it at that point, I can't speak to that.
So somewhere in the post-mortem, someone's got to figure out what happened here. I mean, obviously somebody in the QC chain failed to find something. You shouldn't have had a burst water pipes to figure out that a job that was QC'd, accepted, paid for, something was missing. I mean, I'm assuming these aren't $5 items.
Yeah, if something's delivered, you'd think there'd be, okay, I got 5 of those.
It's a key piece or component to that, and somehow it was just oversight, not there. There's a problem there. So
and maybe I've asked this question before, too, but, if the 30% valve open is a factor, obviously it is a factor, that was an instruction that we were given to set them at that, or they were set at that by someone.
Correct.
Correct.
We didn't.
Because it's new equipment to us, so we wouldn't really know that
Right.
percentage we should have, so, right?
Correct. And if this damper was on and the system worked, that 30% might be the right number. That's where they're at right now. They know it's between 30 and 100. It's somewhere in that spectrum.
Bottom line, it wasn't done right in the first place, so that's why it happened.
On
So
the middle
it's
school
30%.
rooftop, those do not have that top damper, which is it was referred to as a safety valve, that if the one louvers failed, this would prevent.
So last year at this time, how old was the heating equipment that we were working with in that building?
From 77
Really
or
old.
76 or something, wasn't it?
Wow. Built 1975. 74, 75 school year.
Sat vacant?
Sat vacant until the fall of 1977.
Well, there was a cold winter last year.
Mm-hmm.
Making that
Nothing
happen.
happened till we got the new stuff.
And so now do we, I don't know, it's us, somebody find out who was responsible for the louvers not being installed, and then is that company or person responsible for paying for everything? Eating, because now I understand that all the tile is not covered to be replaced in middle school, but it should be.
They are set sag, and the company doing the repair work will be out tomorrow at 1, and I'll know a definitive answer what's covered, what's not. I did get a verbal over the phone, but again, I'll wait till I get something in writing regarding the maps, and I think I reported that to you in the newsletter.
But still, the bottom
correct.
line is, this isn't going to cost us anything. So
Yeah, and
somebody.
we're not gonna have mismatched tile.
You're darn right we're not.
One of the main doors that people
Yep.
walk into at the middle
That's
school.
right.
It's not what we pay for.
So somebody besides Richmond Community Schools is going to pay for this mess. That's the bottom line.
And then I guess the last question, Brian, is someone's got to figure out is what's the residual damage, the rest of them, based on the pipes? I mean, I don't know.
Is there gonna be an
Well, there was-
extended warranty that they're not gonna be replaced? An extended warranty?
We did have that conversation today. Dickerson Mechanical and Thermonetics was going to talk and get back to us. Right now, the year warranty that comes with your parts and labor on that year, as of today, would expire before we hit February of next year, according to what they're telling me today. But again, they're going to talk and get back to me, because my concern was, as I expressed today, was we're going to make this fix. We're going to put the damper on, we're going to fix it, but we really won't be able to know and test the system until the next time we get a cold.
Right.
I mean, that's going to be, so.
January, February.
Right.
We don't know what other stresses get put on the system because all this happened. is my
On the
concern.
other units.
Well, there
to
was
address the
conversation
person.
regarding, and I'm not the mechanical, so forgive me, but, the copper tubing does have the ability to expand and contract, but over time, it's going to create a weakness in that copper. So if we've had other units that have been doing that, but haven't bursted, it's weakened. Now, there was some disagreements among the engineers on that concept, but
The only comment that I have, Chip, is that thank you for coming and doing an update, but it's curious to me because we were told we've never had an update a year into this project. And we were told that that was because that's not what our contract with you was, to have updates. So it's nice to get someone standing up here to tell us what's going on, because we have not had it. Well, no, Bill, the one time, but when we wanted, and you're talking about timelines, you're giving all this, that we've never seen a timeline of when anything is supposed to be finished through this whole project.
Reactive updates.
Never.
Okay.
But, so thank you for coming now. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
All right.
Next is our public comments portion of our meeting. If anyone would like to address the board, they can. We just ask that you come up to the podium if there's something you'd like to say. Say it. If you need a question answered, we will respond. Would anyone like to address the board? No? Okay. Next, our consent agenda. A motion would be in order to accept the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Was that Dan?
Yes, support.
It's moved and supported. Is there any discussion first, or any questions with respect to the claims and accounts? Anybody have any questions about those? No? Okay. Then Brian, would you like to speak to the...
Sure. You have a updated personnel report with a revised start date, as well as I wanted to clarify on one of the positions. We have here tonight Shannon Kuntz for the educational paraprofessional. That position is a vacant position that was in the existing budget that was approved. In the revised Title I grant, we added some more additional Title I paraprofessionals, along with the second position I'm going to talk to you about. So I'd like to introduce, here's Shannon Kuntz.
Good evening. I've been a member of the Richmond community for 16 years. I currently have 5 children in your district and a 2-year-old, soon approaching. I was a Title I parapro at St. Peter's for 8 years, and my last year was 2 school years ago. And I'm just really looking forward to contributing at the Lee School and making a difference and going from there. So,
excellent. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
The second position on here is we wrote into the grant a Title I academic specialist, and this position really is to, I think of it as a coach. The staff at Lee, you know, I can say that they're hard working. They want the best for kids at the school. But sometimes some of the issues that they're faced with, and I'll just speak to NWA, is how do I use that data in the classroom for planning? And our role is to bring someone in to help coach the teachers and work with them on developing, you know, lessons that are built around the data, that we know where kids are at, and how do we move kids as far as we can get them. And so Heidi Napier is that person that we're recommending. Heidi has worked last week with the staff. She was there on the PD day because they did do a lot of professional development. And that's I changed the start date to be the 10th, and her calendar then would reflect till the end of the school year, pending your recommendation. But you can see in there she is holds a Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education. She's been trained in the Michigan standards, really how to use those standards, using the data. And I think she's going to, I truly believe she'll be one of the last pieces that we're putting in place at Lee to help and support the staff there to make that school what it really is, an awesome school. And so I look forward to Heidi. So Heidi.
Thanks for having me. I'm Heidi Napier. I've had a chance to be with some of the staff. I'm excited. Your community is wonderful. I have school-age children also, and I'm hoping to make this my home soon. I'm on fire for NWEA. I've worked with it for 6 years now, and I just think that there's a lot for children where we can start doing surgery on their skills and not just teach, you know, children curriculum across the board, but get really to what they need in their skill base. So that's what I hope to bring to them.
Excellent. Thank you.
The last one, though he was not able to be here, he will be at the next board meeting, is the mechanic. Currently, New Haven Community Schools has part of their transportation We are working in finalizing the cost of the, 100% of this person's cost is being reimbursed by New Haven. So if that agreement stays in place, then his whole salary will be reimbursed, plus the other, indirect costs that were associated. We're finalizing those details with New Haven, but all the costs, when I've worked with Keith Wunderlich, the superintendent, is it's 100% reimbursable for the district. So that position is contingent on that agreement with New Haven so that we can get reimbursement. It's a part-time position of 20 hours a week, depending on the needs of the busing program. So.
Is that agreement with New Haven, is that a multiple year or a single year?
It's a year to year. As each of our budgets are, we look at each of our budgets, yeah.
Right.
We know based on, what I did was I took the cost of this particular individual and on the high end, and I built in, kind of some indirect costs that based on figures that we would typically use in grant store, and established a dollar amount. And New Haven felt that was within the budget they could sustain for the rest of this year and next year. That the following year will be relooked at then. We want to make sure this position does not cost us money. It's more of a neutral. It's going to benefit us because we'll have someone here when all of our buses are in operation. Currently, Larry works from, I want to say 5 or 6 in the morning till about 1, 2 in the afternoon. This person would pick up at 1, 2 in the afternoon till about 5, 6 at night. So we'd have someone on call at all times. So that is a benefit for us if there was a need to send someone out for a repair for a bus.
Okay, very good. Anyone else? Okay. It's been moved and supported. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations and welcome. Next, looking for a motion to go into closed session with respect to collective bargaining negotiations.
So moved.
Bridget. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we will go into closed session.